What is up, y'all? Philly Fly Show checking in here, kicking in at Right Way Production Studios, and we back for another week. Going over some of the stats the last couple weeks, and Philly Fly Show is killing it now. On the Sean Strickland fight night card with Anthony Hernandez, we went 6-14, which is not very good. From that point, which was like 4 weeks ago, we went 9-12, 9-12, and 10-14. So been on a tear. We're going to keep the tear going into this week of this fight night. Like I said, last night went 10-14, and just, I don't have a lot of words to say. It was just a good fight night. Not a big recap. Not a bunch of special stuff happened besides Kevin Bajalios did put it on Josh Emmett. But we all kind of saw that coming and predicted that to come. So we're going to go at this kind of quick this week because, well, the Philly Fly Show here, we don't have a lot of time left in the day here. Today is Thursday. Getting this out a little late. I kind of want to get this out on Wednesday. I forgot that I had a draft thing for NCAA March Madness, which is going on right to my right to me, but it was supposed to be a blowout, but now this game is close, so it's at halftime. Figured I'd record now, get this out, get this done. Got my research done with my little notes. Got my picks. Let's get into it, y'all. Alright, so this is UFC Fight Night. Movsar Evloev versus Lerone Murphy. This is a #1 contender fight. Whoever wins this fight literally has to fight Alexander Volkanovski. This card is in London, so it's going to be at a different time than normal. We got the prelims starting at noon Central Time and then 3 p.m. Central Time. So if you're in the Central Time zone, it's going to be quite a good afternoon of fights there and get everything in before the night happens. Now, I'm excited for this main event, but I'm also excited here because I got to get this freaking 14 matchup UFC Fight Night. Gosh, got tongue-tied there. We'll start with the female division. In the bantamweight division, we got Melissa Mullins versus Luana Carolina. Melissa's a +110 underdog, whereas Luana Carolina is a -134 favorite. Mullins is 3-2 in her last 5, 2-2 in her UFC fights, and she's coming off a decision loss. Luana Carolina, again, 3-2 in her last 5 fights, 6-4 in her UFC fights, and coming off a decision loss, just like Melissa. I think Melissa gets it done here. Luana, she looks the part of a fighter, but about halfway through the fight, she loses her power in her strikes and does not become the same fighter. And Melissa Mullins is well-rounded, so she's probably going to drag her into deep waters, and it's going to be not a good matchup for Luana Carolina. Melissa Mullins gets her hand raised after the fight. 1 out of 5 on the confidence level. If that happens, we'll stay in the female division, but we'll move to the strawweight division. Chanel Dyer versus Ravina Oliveira. Now, Ravina is a +330 underdog, whereas Chanel's a -450 favorite. Chanel is 4-1 in her last 5. She went 0-1 on her Dana White Contender Series, which was her last fight, and that was a loss, obviously, coming off a decision loss, but still ended up getting a UFC contract here, a UFC shot, so it's good to see her get the shot. Ravina is 3-2 in her last 5, 0-2 in her UFC fights, and she is coming off a submission loss. So my guess is, because I didn't write this down right, I don't think she's done a 2-fight lose streak. I figured that out about halfway through. I was going to say lose streaks and not just what their last fight was. But Dyer, with that -450, I just don't see her losing that fight. She's too well-rounded, got too good of a resume behind her compared to Ravina, and Ravina has not looked good in her 2 UFC fights. So if she wants to stay in UFC, she's going to have to beat Dyer on Saturday, and that just doesn't seem like it's happening. 3 out of 5 on the confidence level. She can get her hand raised. Now, matchup number 12, we'll get to the male division fight. Lightweight bout between Shamrock and Abdul Karim Eliswadi. Now, he's got such a long name. The rest of it, we're just going to call him Abdul. Shamrock, -104. Abdul, -118. So a little bit of a pick'em with the edge going to Abdul. Shem is 4-1 in his last 5, 0-1 in his UFC debut. So lost his UFC debut, coming off a decision loss. Whereas Abdul, he's 4-1 in his last 5, 0-1 in his UFC fights, and he's coming off a KO loss. Now, because Shamrock's got some ties to England and this being in London, I'm leaning on the Shamrock side and picking Shamrock to win. This is a pick'em fight, essentially, though, so I'm going to only label this a 1 out of 5 on the confidence level, as Shem can get his hand raised after the fight. Move to the heavyweight male division. Louis Sutherland versus Brando Persic. Now, Brando is a negative 265 favorite, whereas Louis is a plus 210 underdog. Now, Louis, he's gotten some bad matchups for his UFC career so far. Louis is 4-1 in his last 5, 0-1 in his UFC career, and he's coming off a submission loss. And then you get Brando, who is 4-1 in his last 5, 1-0, winning his UFC debut and coming off a KO win. Big win there for Brando. Totally just held my drink in my hand while I was talking. But, you know, with the heavyweights, it scares me a little bit to put money down on some of these guys, but do not fear this one. Brando's going to get that win. He's got heavy hands and shows it in the cage. He's light on his feet. It's just going to be a good fight. 3 out of 5 on the confidence that Brando Perrick can get his hand raised. Now, jump to the middleweight division here in the male side. We got Montez Krotovikis versus Antonio Trelecki. Now, Trelecki's a plus 490 underdog, and Matthias is a negative 750 favorite. That's a big favorite here. Matthias is 4-1 in his last 5, 0-1 coming off his Dana White Contender Series fight, so making his UFC debut. And he's, you know, oh wow, I did not write this down right. He went 0-1 in his Dana White Contender Series fight, but then went back to a different promotion and got a KO win in his last fight and got the call back to get his UFC debut. Good for him. His matchup he's got a lucky matchup to me. That Tricoli just doesn't seem like a UFC guy at all. Doesn't seem like he's going to compete much longer, and this is probably his last fight in the UFC. Yeah, Tricoli 1-3-1 in his last 5, 0-3 in the UFC, and on a 3-fight lose streak. Yeah, he's done. Montez is getting a big win on Saturday, 3 out of 5 on the confidence level there. Did not play that. I did not review that fight recently. I did half of my research at work today. Totally forgot about calling out Trey Coley and putting this more on the Montez side than I thought. But you know what? We're just gonna roll with it. Matchup number 9 here. We'll get back to the heavyweight division. This is a banger fight for one side, and one side only. Mario Pinto versus Felipe Franco. Franco's a plus 570 underdog, whereas Pinto's a negative 900 favorite. Pinto is 5-0 in his last 5, 2-0 in the UFC, and 2-fight win streak, both KOs. Fire hands in there. Felipe is 4-1 in his last 5, 0-1 in his Dana White Contender Series. He's got a 2-fight win streak coming out of a different promotion, but getting the UFC debut to make it against Pinto, not a good matchup here. Pinto gets the win here. Big time. 3 out of 5 on the confidence level. He can get his hand raised. Featherweight bout for the male division next. Nathaniel Wood versus Lucena Chieda. Chieda's a negative 250 favorite making his UFC debut against a guy like Nathaniel Wood who has this type of resume. Nathaniel Wood's a plus 198 underdog. That is not fair. This is your best bet of the week, boys and girls. You'll see this on my short here coming up, but this is definitely my best bet of the week. How is Nathaniel Wood an underdog? It just doesn't make sense. I'm going to read you his resume here quick. He's 4-1 in his last 5, 10-3 in his UFC career, coming off of a 3-fight win streak right now, fighting a guy who, yeah, he's 5-0, undefeated fighter. Well, no, he's not 5-0. He's not an undefeated fighter. He's got 1 loss. He's 16-1, my bad. Making his UFC debut and on a 5-fight win streak in a lower promotion against a guy like Nathaniel Wood who has all that experience in the octagon. That is not a good matchup to make your UFC debut against. Yes, the matchmakers have high hopes for Chieda, obviously, but that is not a good matchup. Nathaniel Wood gets that win, whether it's decision, whether it's a finish. It's most likely going to be a decision because he's more of a decision fighter and more of a point fighter. But Nathaniel Wood getting his hand raised, 3 out of 5 on the confidence level on Saturday. Banger, don't miss. Let's go. All right, match like number 7 here is a lightweight bout in the male division. Mason Jones versus Alexa Sola, or Axel Sola, not Alexa. What am I saying? Axel Sola is a plus 112 underdog, whereas Jones is a negative 138 favorite. The Welsh gangster is not losing this fight, if you can obviously tell who I'm going to pick. He is 5-0 in his last 5, 2-0 in his UFC fights, 2-fight win streak coming off. Well, he's on more of a 5-fight win streak. He lost one of his fights right before it. I have this written down kind of bad on my research. My bad, guys. I need to do a way better job at this, but we're all learning as we go. But man, Mason Jones getting a win on Saturday, no matter what. 4-0-1 for Axel, 1-0 in his UFC debut, and he's on a 4-fight win streak coming on a different promotion plus his UFC win. So it's going to be a good fight, but I'm still picking Mason Jones. He's too well-rounded, got hands, and can grapple. The only thing is he's got to work on that gas tank, which is what most of these guys got to do, and I think he can get it done. Jump to the main card here really quickly. Match like number 6 is a featherweight bout between Curtis Campbell and Danny Silva. Danny Silva negative 230 favorite. Curtis plus 184 underdog. Now Curtis is making his he's making his UFC debut. He's an undefeated fighter. He's 5-0 in his last 5. Obviously won his Dana White Contender Series fight. He's got an 8-fight win streak. That's fire. And he's an England guy, so crowd's going to be right behind him. Then you get Danny Silva over there with 4-1 in his last 5, 2-1 in his UFC career, but he's coming off a decision loss. I just think Curtis Campbell's going to be too much for him. I think with the crowd behind him and him being as well-rounded as a fighter as he is, it's going to be way, way too much. I'm taking that 184 and cashing that to the bank, baby. 1 out of 5, though, on the confidence level that he can get his hand raised. Look, man, Danny Silva is just a badass fighter. He can still get it done. It's cool. I like on these picks. All right, match like number 5. We'll get back to the middleweight division. We get the 11th ranked Roman Dolidze versus Christian Leroy Duncan. Now, if you don't know where that Leroy thing is from, it's a hilarious little skit from a long time ago. Probably one of the most early YouTube sensation funny things that everyone used to listen to as a gamer. Look it up. It's hilarious. Dolidze plus 340 underdog. Christian Leroy Duncan, negative 470 favorite. Now, obviously, you can probably guess who I'm going to go with, but just still going to read off their stats here. Roman Dolidze is 3-2 in his last 5, 9-4 in the UFC, and he's coming off a submission loss. His counterpart on the other side's got 4-1 in his last 5. He is 6-2 in his UFC fights and on a 3-fight win streak. So let's go Christian Leroy Duncan. Let's make it 4. Take that ranking from Dolidze and get up in there and get you some more money in your pockets. All right, 3 out of 5 on the confidence level. He can get his hand raised. Match like number 4 is a thing I don't ever do, so take this one to the bank too. But the odds aren't that great, so put this in your parlays, boys, girls, cats, dogs, whoever's putting in those parlays. Light heavyweight division, Iwo Barnowski versus Austin Lane. Don't know how Austin Lane's even in the UFC anymore. He's a plus 410 underdog, which you'll understand why. Negative 590 on Evo. Look, man, Evo's an undefeated fighter. 1-0 in his UFC fights. 5-0 in his last 5. Actually on a 7-fight win streak, to be completely honest. And his counterpart, Austin Lane, 1-4 in his last 5. 1-4-1 in the UFC. And on a 2-loss streak. He just does not have it to be a UFC fighter. He can fight in any other promotion, I'm guessing, but in the UFC, ain't working out for him. I don't even know how the UFC's in there. They're just letting him just get him beat up and for show and paying him money to do it. So at least he's getting paid, but it's not very great. Evo does not lose on Saturday. There's no way I could bet. There's no way you could talk me into betting against him no matter what. 5 out of 5 on the confidence level. If you know anything about my page and follow me, I do not give 5 out of 5s. Like, it's very hard. I've only done it 4 times. This will be the 4th time I'm giving someone a 5 out of 5, and the people I've ever given a 5 out of 5 never lost. So, cash that to the bank, and let's go. All right. Match like number 3, which should be co-main event, but they're not giving it to him. The number 13th rank in the welterweight, in the welterweight division, number 13th rank, Michael Venom Page versus Sam Patterson. Sam Patterson's a plus 144 underdog and fan favorite because he's from England, so he's going to have the fans behind him. But you also got Michael Venom Page, who he's just a fan favorite, period, and he's a negative 178 favorite. Yo, man, Michael is 4-1 in his last 5, 3-1 in the UFC on a 2-fight win streak. Sam Patterson 4-1 in his last 5, 4-1 in the UFC, and on a 4-fight win streak. So somebody's win streak's coming to an end, but I do not believe it's going to be Michael Venom Page. Michael Venom Page has got the distance striking. He's got power in his hands. Sam's lanky and can get in there, so it's not like he's not going to be able to counter punch. But I just feel like Michael Venom Page's striking, just everything he puts together is going to be that much better. Don't understand how the odds makers really have it this close. I feel like Michael Venom Page should be a lot higher, but I'm thinking they're thinking about the fans behind Patterson and the way Patterson's knocked out a couple people. It's a good fight. It's a don't miss, don't blink fight, but that number 13th ranking is not changing hands, and then Michael Venom Page is getting a win on Saturday, but I'm not that confident on it. 1 out of 5 on the confidence level that Michael can get his hand raised. Co-main event of the evening is a featherweight bout between Luke Riley and Michael Aswell. Aswell is a plus 180 underdog, whereas Luke Riley is a negative 225 favorite. Yo, dog. Luke is an undefeated fighter. He's 1-0 in the UFC and on a 12-fight win streak. That is just crazy in itself, but you got to get those wins in there in the UFC to get your name in there. His counterpart is 3-2 in his last 5, 1-1 in the UFC, and his last fight was a win by KO. So he's got some momentum behind him, but I just think Luke Riley has got too well-rounded to lose this fight. The only way I feel like Luke loses is if he gets caught and gets put to sleep, and again, that can happen to anybody. So 1 out of 5 that Luke Riley can get his hand raised. And then we get to the main event of the evening, boys and girls. We'll stay in the featherweight division. Movsar Evloev versus Lerone Murphy. Lerone is a plus 198 underdog and the 3rd ranked welterweight versus the number 1 welterweight. The 3rd ranked featherweight versus the number 1 ranked featherweight, and Movsar Evloev. Evloev negative 250 favorite. Lerone Murphy, like I said, plus 198 underdog. Evloev's 5-0 in his last 5. 9-0 in the UFC and on a 19-fight win streak. That's unheard of just in itself. He got his counterpart in Lerone Murphy with 5-0 in his last 5. 9-0-1 in the UFC and on a 9-fight win streak. So somebody's win streak's coming to an end. Somebody's record's a little too padded. And I'm going to tell you right now, that's going to be Evloev. Now, Evloev is a very good fighter. He looks the part. He's got the physique. He's got the strength. He just point fights you and doesn't go for it. Any of his fights is just lay on you and everything. And with the way the UFC has been calling it with the refs and standing him up as quick, that's going to be the downfall for Evloev. He's going to literally have to go in there and go for submissions or ground and pound, which he just doesn't do. And Lerone, I think, can defend enough takedowns and get back up or hold him there until the ref stands him up. And then on the feet, we've seen Evloev. He does not like it to get hit. I mean, nobody likes to get hit. But he gives a reaction like he just can't stand it. And Lerone is lanky, got those hands, and will put you to sleep. So, if you didn't already figure out who I'm going with, Evloev is going to get exposed. Lerone Murphy is a well-rounded guy. He doesn't have to be a great grappling specialist to beat Evloev. He's just got to stop him 50% of the time and land shots. And if he does that, Evloev's not even making it to the 4th or 5th round. I'm picking Lerone Murphy 1 out of 5 on the confidence level. He gets his hand raised just because Evloev is good. It's just he's a point fighter. He's not going to go out there and lay it all on the line. No, I'm glad I got this done in, like, it says 20 minutes here. Well, 19 minutes, about to hit the 20-minute mark. So I'm going to shout out to Right Way Production Studios for always making this happen. We're going to cut it right at the 20-minute mark. See y'all next week, and I love my fans.